Welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen. It's really two programs in one. This is a series that appeals to your creative side. Food that is sumptuous stuff. How could that be? This is a program about people who want to eat healthy and reduce calories. Actually, it's about food with an aromatic quality that fills the nose. Oh, sure, but it's also about keeping my arteries clean by reducing fat. But it doesn't mean a thing if the food isn't rich and colorful. Maximize the flavor. Okay, but I must have healthy food that I can cook in minutes. I must minimize the risk. So welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen, where we get our heads together just for you. And you're very welcome. Welcome. This one is a dessert and super one. This is a cheesecake idea with the most unusual crust that you ever saw. I got to get something on the go, so it's one of these tins, which is it's called light. I mean, everything's called light nowadays, isn't it? Evaporated skim milk. And that actually contains about 1.5 cups of evaporated skim milk. And then there are 4 packages of gelatin, you know. I tried to measure to see how much is in each package, and it seems to be just a little under a tablespoon. So if you want to get it in bulk and measure it yourself, that's fine. So I just want to put the one into the other and just whisk that gelatin into the top just to soften it. And as you'll see, the heat's underneath, just mild heat underneath, just to be able to get that down so that every speck can be used. All right, come through. Let me explain what I want to try and do this time. Because what we're doing is looking at a cheesecake and trying to do something really radical, something different. Because you see, on the outside of a cheesecake, generally, is the crust. And I don't know whether you do this one, but most people seem to. There's graham cracker crust, which, of course, the graham flour was designed by a fellow called Sylvester Graham in about 1830. He was a Presbyterian minister and really got off his bike, which is an Australian expression, about, you know, getting a whole grain flour once again, saying that to make white flour was just awful, you know, without the full grain being there. So, you know, when you make a graham cracker crust, you also put with that fat. So, what I'd like to try and do is to cut the fat out of it, you know, surprise for me, and put something else in. Went ahead and sort of looked at it, and I found that the answer was a fig. Amazingly, the fig actually does that work in the same way that the butter seems to do. But, of course, with no fat whatsoever, and huge amounts of fiber, which I love. All right? So it's really quite a different technique. So if you'd like to see how it's done, really? Come on, let's have a go. Good. I'm just getting some green marker off myself. I seem to get myself stabbed with marker pen every time. Now, let's have a look and see how this is doing. If you put it over, the gelatin over a little heat and then just whip it together, it shouldn't take too long to be able to get out. Let's have a look and see how that's done. It's a bit hard to tell. Later on, I'll show it to you with water. But this one, if you look at the back of the spoon, there's still some little tiny flecks there that are still haven't dissolved. So just keep it on there and make sure that it dissolves absolutely before you add it. Great. Okay, let's have a look at the fig itself. And this is the one that I wanted to show you. The figs, I've got just 18 of these little fellas. It's about 1.5 cups of figs altogether. And each of these, when you get them, have got a little curly top on them, which is quite indigestible. There's no way that you can get that stalk and eat that. Well, I suppose there is. It's high fiber. Well, you already know about it, haven't you? Started to chew into it. Cut into the center. If you've never cut into the center of a fig, you're in for a great surprise. Look at the tiny little seeds that there are there. As a matter of fact, if you've got, false teeth, I'm terribly sorry to be personal like this, but I've got a false tooth in the front, so I know. I got it knocked out by an Australian, playing golf, by the way. If you've got false teeth, and one of those little seeds gets underneath, it's bad news. But if you don't have false teeth, it's wonderful, because you can crunch all the way around your teeth. Wonderful texture. All right, so you've got 18 of those, and a small 17 and a half. And you've got a small processor like this. It needs to be a fairly small one because I'll show you how it works. And 1 cup of the graham crackers. Those are the standard graham crackers that go into it. And then just push the rest of the 18 on the top and top it off with the rest of the graham crackers they were. So it's in layers when you're setting it up. That on the top surface, and dial it up to about 6 on my machine anyway, and pulse it. If you've got a pulse, it doesn't run it, but it actually does it like that. That starts to get the things generally sort of agreeably combined. No? Then run it. And what's going to happen now as this is running round, you've got the dry graham cracker crust, and you've got the sticky piece of fig, and they're getting to know each other. And they're really sort of linking arms together and gradually going round and round and round. And what you'll see, and it doesn't take but about 35, 40 seconds, it's just beginning to happen now. They're beginning to clump together and become a real dough in there. So it's just coming up. See, now it begins to start to clump. And the moment that it starts to clump, watch it carefully. That's it. Okay, stop it the moment that it clumps together. And you've got a tremendous stuff. Look at it. I nearly called it mixture, but I know I mustn't do that. And there it is down in the top. Now, with a certain amount of water, and water is fine for this purpose, you can't do it with just your bare hands. If you do it with your bare hands, it's sticky, and it's a horrible experience. But if you just get a little water on the board and just turn it around like this, you've got a piece of dough which is ready to be able to be used. Now, what I do with this one, where is it? Here we go. This is a small springform pan. And this one, about 7 inches, and normally you go about 9 inches. So the mix, if you've got a 9-inch one, it's not going to reach the top. But if you can find one of the 7-inch ones, I think they're better for the reason that you can get a smaller slice, yet a taller slice. Taller, but shorter. And that way, it has a good appearance, and you don't have quite so much to eat. And it looks great. And that cuts down on the calorie value. Okay. So what I've done several different ways here, but just get it in a nice round shape. Put it in the bottom like that. And then press it out with your fingers, just like that. Press it all the way around so that you've got the base at about 1/4 of an inch. It shouldn't be, heavy at all. And spread it out to 1/4 of an inch thick. Just just if you go through, doesn't matter. Just get a piece and just patch it up. And then just get your fingers at the sides and then just pull it up the sides. Now this takes about 3 or 4 minutes and it's a bit fiddly. But I mean, I'm sure you've managed to do that, and see after that if I can keep looking at you and then do this. Here's the one that's done. Just completely surrounded and ready for the mix. All right, let's put that on one side and have a look at the mix. This means getting a blender. I hope you've got a blender of some kind. And then into the bottom of the blender, have to go back to this and see how this is doing. Let's just do that check once again. There isn't a single fleck in that. That is completely clear. Good. All right, just warmed up enough. 5 minutes. Don't boil it, but just warm it up. And look, you see, it's creamy. It's almost like it has, thick dairy cream in it, which of course it hasn't. And then here, 3/4 of a cup of the soft brown sugar. Give or take a little bit off the side. 4 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Now that gives it that chocolate appearance, and this is the cocoa powder that I have. By the way, this one here is called Dutched. You see how it's darker than this one? This one's got an alkali in it, which neutralizes the acidity in chocolate. I find it's easier to mix, and it seems to be less acid as well. Okay, 2 teaspoonfuls. Measure this one, because it's got to be exactly accurate, because you can ruin it if you put too much, of vanilla extract. Pop it in, the real stuff, nothing false. Slap the top on and whiz it, okay? Now, immediately, that's what I like about the Dutch chocolate. Immediately, that goes in, and that's just fine. When you... sudden noise. Now, 3 cups altogether of a small curd low-fat cottage cheese. And do please add this 1 cup at a time and let it really incorporate. Wait for the hole to appear and go for it. It takes about 5-6 minutes for that to actually take place. So, thank you. I didn't want to compete with it. Here's the one which has been done 5 or 6 minutes, and I leave 1 cup for the end, just 1 cup, and then stir in 1 of those cupfuls of the low-fat cottage cheese, and that gives me a kind of textural change. Otherwise, it's really rather like pudding, in the middle, or a custard. But this gives me a chocolatey, vanilla-flavored, gorgeous combination. And all you need to do is to shove that in the refrigerator for a couple of hours, all right? And pull out the one that's set. Wouldn't you love it if you had this sort of thing available? Okay. Now, then with this spring form, you just simply do a clip like that, okay, and pull it off. Isn't that's, I think the person who invented that takes the biscuit for being the most inventive person I've ever known. I'd love to know who he is. And if you're still alive, do let me know, because I think you're terrific. Then you cut the slice, and this is the slice that we've looked at in terms of this. And warm a knife up first, just a little bit. Oh, good. Look. See how that sets up? Now, look at that. Just see how that comes out. And see the flecks on the side. Aren't they beautiful? If you didn't have the flecks on the side, it wouldn't be quite the same. And take a little powdered cocoa and just to sprinkle it around the plate, just to let people know that you've got some. Okay, come on. Let's see the numbers. Whoa, like it. That's nice. It's kind of, we should have a different name for it. What about the Milky Way or something? Or the Sagan cheesecake? Right, that's what it looks like, and this is what we tried to do, to take the fat out of the crust and to put the fig in its place. And so I think it works. Let's have a look and see how the numbers react to this, because that's the important thing. All right, so instead of the classic cheesecake, in this case, this one is a classic chocolate cheesecake that I've compared it to, you have 413 calories. That's what it takes. So this one is 210. So we're over 200 saved to begin with. Okay, the fat's 28, which is almost half a day's supply of fat, and so this is down to only 3 grams, 1 of which is saturated, which means that when you actually multiply the total number of grams by 9 and then express it as a percentage of the total calories, which is the way you get a percentage of calories from fat, it comes to only 11% for a slice of cheesecake, 11% calories from fat. And then cholesterol, look at this, 6. It's hardly worth counting. And then 292 in sodium. Dietary fiber goes up because of the figs to 3, which I'm always thrilled about. And let's have a look. Oh, look at that. It's tender, and the crust there. Remember I told you it has a crunchiness? When the figs are doing their thing, there's just a marvelous little bite to it, and it really works well, okay? Don't forget to stir a little bit so you get the flecks in like that. All right, now, as always, springboarding is really important, and this time, what I'm going to do in springboarding is I'm going to take a vegetable, because we're told to eat up vegetables and stop eating sweets and things. Oh, do you think it would be too sneaky if we actually got a vegetable and made it into a dessert and made it into a cheesecake? Anyway, because, I'm eating my vegetables. Well, I'll show you how it's done. Good, that's going nicely. What I put on here was just the same as before, except in this case, no evaporated skim milk, just plain water. A cup of water and the 4 envelopes of the gelatin. And that now, or there are little bubbles in there because there's not a speck of gelatin that hasn't melted out. Again, very low temperature, don't ever boil it, and it's so important to do that first, otherwise you'll get an oozy mix. All right, just exactly the same as I did before, except on this occasion there is, in with the 18 figs, these little chocolate wafers, I hope you've seen these. They're very crisp and they break easily, and you buy them in packets, and they're called chocolate wafers. Look for them in the supermarket. They're quite fun. Okay, so just turn that on. Again, this for me is 6. Give it a quick pulse first of all. Don't forget that, by the way. If you've got an old-fashioned machine, then you can turn the switch on and off, you know, to be able to pulse it first. When it's done that, then you can run it. It's really just simply to get the dry crumbs and the sticky figs, you know, well integrated together. It's such an interesting idea, this one. Works well every time. Think of springboarding. You've got some favorite cookies. Say, you know, the macaroons, you know, with the coconut. Not too many of those. Those macaroon biscuits, I could put those with figs and come up with a delightful crust on the outside. Maybe some peppermint in there at the same time would do it well too. All right, see, when it starts to go at that precise moment, cut it down. And there it is. Now, that becomes then a chocolate fig crust. Now, I don't have to mold that up for you. You know exactly how we did that before. And what I want to do is to get this mix on, because this is really different. To begin with, then, the same basic gelatin structure goes into the bottom, and just pour that in. And then the 3/4 of a cup of soft brown sugar. And, you know, it's just the same as white sugar, come on. But they add a little molasses back in it to color it. Very sweet, and you may even, when you actually taste this, want to get the sweetness down a little bit. Okay, now here, instead of the vanilla, this is a marvelous little collection. I've got powdered ginger, 1/2 teaspoonful each. Powdered ginger, ground cloves, and ground cinnamon. And that, when you put those together, they complement each other in a wonderful way, because it spices the mix. So just pop that in. And let me see, what else have I got to put in here? And the cottage cheese. With the cottage cheese, you just simply pour a little bit of that in, like that, about sort of 1 cupful, and then start to whiz it up. I always put the lid on just in case, you know, I've wound up with this stuff all over the place. The only important thing to remember with adding this is just a little at a time, and make sure that you've got the whirlpool, the sort of Alfred Hitchcock look in the middle. If that goes away, you've got to stop before adding the next bit. What that's doing, it's showing you, see, it's all gone. Creature from 20,000 fathoms. Up it comes. And then just keep pouring it in. Okay, so there is 2 cups of cottage cheese. That's the low-fat cottage cheese and small curd. All right. We'll just let that keep on doing its thing over there and show you what happens next, because this is the vegetable. And the vegetable here is the butternut squash. Didn't waste too much that time. And then place the blade on the top, press down, and it isn't too hard as squash. If you haven't tried this, by the way, just to bake it and eat it as a squash is just wonderful. But take about 2 pounds in weight altogether you'll need to scoop out for the amount that you'll need here. Place it, I often place it just seeds and all, just on a plate like that, but you can scrape the seeds off before you start. Into an oven, 350 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 180 degrees centigrade. Give it 40 minutes, takes just about 40 minutes. And then it comes out of the bottom. Quite delightful. See what's happening, you get 3. And all you do is just look at that. When it's beautifully done, it's so soft and tender that you can take a scoop, like you just scoop it out. It's so moist, and it has such a fine, delicious flavor to it as well. So all you then need is something like this. It's rather like a large garlic press. This is indispensable for whipped potatoes and this sort of thing. Fill up that cupful, and look, it squeezes through. It's called a ricer, and it squeezes all through, and you've got, it's nice and smooth, but yet there's just a little bit of mouth texture to that as well. So, when this is now whizzed up, and it takes about that time, 4 or 5 minutes, you know, you can stop it, open it up, and just look at this. look, just imagine what that tastes like with that cottage cheese. See how that has gone down. It is creamy and soft and spiced, and the cinnamon is there and the ginger is there, and it's all just marvelous. Now, you notice that I didn't whiz up the vegetable in it because I wanted a little bit of texture. You see on the top of that spoon there, there's a bit of texture in this, and I want that texture in the same way as I had texture in the previous one. Okay, done. Now, all I have to do is to get the spoon back out of the sink and add 1 cup of, yes, 1 cup of plain non-fat yogurt right at the end. Just stir that in. That gives a little bit of a tart bite to it, gives you the volume that you require for the, and just a little bit of extra. There's nothing, actually there should always be in all mixes, I feel, just a little bit extra, especially if there's kids in the family. Mommy, want to lick the bowl? There you are, darling. See? Just enough for lick the bowl. All right. Walk carefully. The only thing that can ruin it now is an earthquake. And into the fridge. 2 hours, and it should be set up so that instead of serving it, you can bounce it in to your guests. It's not that. You might like to experimentally drop down just 1 envelope of gelatin just to be on the safe side. But it depends how hot it is when you serve these things. I think this is just fine like this. Okay. Just a knife, heat it up just a little bit first of all for serving. This is the kind of shape and size, just like the one we did before, that you can get with the numbers that I've got. A plate, and I'll tell you, I am beginning to enjoy the baking and dessert process. Look at that, will you? Look at that, nice. All right. Now, if you get an orange, and you get that there are little peeling devices which you can actually score the outside of an orange, very thin slices, like these here. And what I did is put these into a pot with a little water and just bring it to the boil, and then turn the water off, throw the water away. And that gives me a piece of orange zest, which is really remarkable because it's kind of, it's a bright note, but at the same time, it's not overpowering, which it could be if you left it without blanching it first. And you just throw little curly bits of that onto the plate. Isn't that great? You might have seen that in some famous restaurants nowadays. They're always throwing little curly bits of things all over the place. Used to happen by mistake. Now it happens by design. All right, there it is. There's it is. Let's have a look and see about the numbers. Stands up nicely. You see it's nice and tall. If you compare this then, because of that mold, which is only 7 inches across, you see how tall it stands on the plate, and yet it's fairly short. This one is longer, but it's smaller. And so I think you have a sense of, getting a good plateful. Do you? Good. All right. This is what happens to the numbers. This is compared to the classic, which is a kind of pumpkin cheesecake, if you like. And this one here, I think, could be just sensational at Thanksgiving. Think of it. All right, 249 calories, under the 300, down from 366. But look at the fat. From 27 grams of fat altogether, that's down to 4. And from 16 grams of saturated fat, which I really don't like, that's down to 1. That's just 1 out of the 4. Then that means percentage of calories from fat, which was 65%, now is 13. And isn't that lovely to think that a thing like that can just be 13%? Boy. Cholesterol down to only 10. Sodium at 252, which is fine for dessert. And dietary fiber, a whopping 4. I've still got a piece of that orange in my mouth. That's nice to chew on. Okay. Now, actually, it reminds me of a fine cheese, doesn't it? With a sort of a crust on the outside of the cheese. See the crust there and how good that looks? Smooth, spicy, touch of orange there, crunch of the seeds from the fig. It is altogether very good. I tell you what, next Thanksgiving, I'm going to serve this for my family. In fact, I might serve it to them before Thanksgiving. Okay. Thank you so much for being with me. May God bless you and keep you and make all of your lovely efforts on behalf of people that you adore, come off like that does. Success. Isn't that nice? God bless. See you next time.